Драматичний виступ Blood of Our Soil або Кров нашої землі був представлений в Westbury Theatre в місті Едмонтон. Ліяна Маку грала головну роль і написала цей зворушливий сценарій, в якому вона намагалася порівняти історичні події з сучасними і зобразити психологічні труднощі тих, хто повинні були тікати з України під час війни.
This play is inspired by my grandmother's journal that she wrote while she was fleeing during World War II, as well as the amalgamated experiences of all my Ukrainian grandparents. But I found her journal in 2012, and it said, one of the lines really resonated for me. It said, "How can our land not but be fertile when so much blood, both Ukrainian and foreign, has continually seeped into it? It shows that our enemies must love our land more than us, for they fight for it ceaselessly. Will they live to see that moment when our people join the circle of free nations?" So I found this journal in 2012, and that line was already resonating with me. And then in 2013, when the Euromaidan revolution began, her words just kept bouncing around in my head, and then as that went on, and then the conflict and Russian aggression started to flare up in eastern Ukraine, I couldn't stop thinking about my Baba's journal, and I knew that I had to do something with it as a theater artist. So I began writing a show, and I premiered a workshop version of it in 2017, which mostly focused on my relationship growing up with my grandmother, and I created a story based on those experiences and brought her journal to life. And we received a really warm response from this, and from the Ukrainian community and the community at large. The community at large their response was that they couldn't believe that they didn't know the history of Soviet oppression in Ukraine and the experiences that the Ukrainian people have endured. And also, what really surprised me was just how few people really knew that there is a war happening in contemporary Ukraine right now. And that was not okay for me. So after following the workshop production, we gathered the troops, my production company, Pyretic Productions, along with director Patrick Lundeen and my dramaturg Matthew McKenzie. We traveled to Ukraine in October 2017, and we traveled to my grandparents' ancestral villages. I visited the home that my grandmother was ripped from. I dug through the graveyards of my grandfather's village and found the tombstones of my great-grandparents and that kind of thing. And that was profoundly inspiring to me and really connected me to my ancestral Ukrainian homeland. Following this sort of family pilgrimage, we went to eastern Ukraine and visited and interviewed dozens and dozens of people that have been affected by the war, including war veterans, internally displaced people living in places and homes where shells have hit. We spoke with people living on the front lines in Avdiivka. We spoke with the director of communications for the governor of the region of Donbass and of the director of a baby orphanage. And so we just gathered dozens of people's experiences of living in the war, just like how my grandmother was an individual living in the war. And we came back to Canada and asked ourselves, how are we going to create a play from this? How are we going to do these people justice? And I got to work.
My first day, we rolled through the villages on tanks. We dug trenches all day, we drank, smoked, played guitar. I'd never seen stars so bright. We woke up with the sunrise. The sky was red, birds were singing. Then came the booms.
I knew I'd make it to Baba's village eventually, but I needed to understand Ukraine, the side of the country that's been devastated by war.
You see that field over there? It used to be full of sunflowers. Now it's full of landmines. Over 1,500.
Is it as bad as my dad says it is, or has the worst passed?
Our neighbor crossed the field to feed the stray dogs. He never came back.
There's articles and conflicting news sources, but it's impossible to sort through the information.
Boom! The shrapnel hit him in the neck. He was in shock, so he couldn't speak, and I had to cut his bandana off, and my hand was shaking, so I grabbed a knife by the blade. I still have the scar.
But If I can just understand, maybe I can bring that understanding home. Maybe I can help people in Canada to know the truth.
I'm from Majove. I was standing in my garden when I heard the tanks on the roadway. My dog barked at them as they drove by. Stray dogs were howling in the distance. Then a blast. Then silence. Then the booms didn't stop for days.
What our goal is for this show is to create the emotional human experience of what it means to live in and amongst the sites of this senseless war that's occurring in Ukraine.
Well, I'm not a very emotional person, but this really, for some reason, hit me extremely hard. Watching my father, deal with all of the things going on in Ukraine, it really brought, a lot of deep emotions forward of, sadness and what's going on and how Ukrainians have been tormented through history, and it's really hitting me hard.
Я думаю, що це лишить їм велике враження про дійсно, що там діється в Україні і як було і тепер. І я думаю, для наших молодь ми мусимо їм продовжувати те навчання, що було, що є, і про майбутність. І для них це такі маленькі зернятка, що будуть ті ідеї, ті думки, та інформація, те почуття, що вони можуть взяти з собою, ніколи не лишиться, але завжди залишиться з ними в їхніх серцях. І можливість, що наша майбутність може з цим щось далі продовжувати цю працю.
My name is Patrick Mundine, and I was the director on this project, and I was also one of the artistic producers. So I've been working with a team of 2 people to kind of produce and fundraise over the course of the last year since we did the workshop production of the play last spring. And throughout the last 6 weeks or so, we've been working together with the company to prepare the play as well as these panels, and there's a bit of a movie installation that we've also worked on all together collaboratively to kind of bring all sorts of disciplines together to tell this story of what's going on in Ukraine right now, as well as the story of what it was like for Ukrainians during World War II. The most challenging aspect to direct was definitely we visited Ukraine for 3 weeks for a bit of a research trip, and we met a lot of people who have had their lives devastated by the conflict, and we've got several people in the cast. Some are Ukrainian, some are not, but for the most part, all of the people who are involved in this project had to extend their capacity and their imagination to become the characters that are living in war-struck Ukraine right now. And so we spent a good amount of time just talking about the psychological effects of what it would be like to be having your home taken away from you, having to be living in a hostel for 3 years waiting for the government to help you, the soldiers who have lost friends, and all of these sorts of things. So we spent a lot of time watching videos and having conversations about the emotional and psychological effects of going through something like that, so that we could truthfully tell these stories on stage and have the audience recognize it as almost believing that these people are the characters than the people that we met in Ukraine. And being able to translate that honestly on stage was a huge challenge. There's also a lot of different disciplines in the play. There's music and dance and singing, acting, lots of integrated projection design. So trying to find a way to weave all these different elements together to tell one succinct story was definitely a challenge, but I think we've pulled it off.
В артистів є мета зробити всеканадський тур цієї драматичної п'єси.
We need to tour this show. It can't stop here in Edmonton. This show needs to be seen by more people. The people in Ukraine deserve to have their stories told all over Canada and hopefully beyond Canada as well. Following the Edmonton production, we're going to begin fundraising for a touring production. We will be bringing the show to Toronto. Dates are still to be announced, but I mean the biggest obstacle when it comes to touring is funding and having the funds to do that. So we need to begin writing grants and hopefully find some people who would be interested in donating and supporting the production in that way. But beyond just touring this particular show, the agenda beyond this show, it's more than just a play, it's more than just entertainment. This show has a message, and I hope that the spirit of the message stays alive in everyone that has seen it, and that will inspire them to go out into the world and hear and listen and know and keep the spirit of Ukraine alive. Because if we can just keep that alive, the Ukrainian spirit, then that's one of the things that our veteran from Ukraine, who we brought here as a guest of the production, Dmytro Lavrenchuk, he said to us that if we can just keep the Ukrainian spirit alive, then nobody can take that away from us. And we in Canada can do that as a part of the Ukrainian community and inspire the community at large. So that is my agenda and my hope beyond the production.
Важко описати свої враження, бо я не знав, що тут буде, хоча я давав багато інформації використано з того, що я давав, але тим не менше я не очікував такого результату. Я не очікував, що буду з таким задоволенням дивитись, я не очікував, що буду так плакати в багатьох сценах. Мені дуже приємно було бачити українську мову в контексті англійської. Це дуже так, я ще переварюю все це в своїй голові так само, але те, що мене вразило, і те, що я вважаю перспективою для українсько-канадських відносин, це представлення України в світовому контексті канадською спільнотою українців. Бо вона дуже добре, і ця вистава показує, що дуже добре збереглися традиції, розуміння. Мені дуже сподобалась вистава, я раджу, і я само собою, що буду, де тільки можна, буду промоцію влаштовувати в Україні, говорити, ми вже говорили з хлопцями і дівчатами з приводу фільму, можливо, фільм зробимо по мотивам, якомога більшу розголос будемо робити.